Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel. In today's video tutorial, I am going to show you how you can easily use stencils you have to create interesting layers on your art journal pages and mixed media projects. I'm going to start with this beautiful napkin from NINNYSNAPKINS.com. It's called Gardening Gnomes. It is absolutely adorable and I couldn't wait to create with it. The Ninny has a lot of gnome napkins. And if gnomes are your thing, go and check it out. I'll put the link in the description box below. So I love this napkin because it has 4 images, but the 2 of them are facing inward and 2 of them are facing outward. And that gives you more flexibility in the creative process because I can play with the orientation and the organization of where I put it. So I've just cut those apart and I am peeling off the excess ply of napkins. There's typically 2, especially if you get them from Ninny's. I'm going to save those because they add wonderful texture and have other uses within my art. And now I can kind of put this on the page and decide where exactly I want to put it. Now, I don't want to just glue this square down, so I am going to do what I call water cutting. And by that I mean I have a liner brush with a little bit of water. You do not need much. And I basically put a line down, the water soaks in, weakens the napkin, and allows me to pull off excess napkin. Now, if the napkin was white, you might get away with it. It'll turn clear once you glue it down, especially if your background is still white. But the top part of this background is a very light blue, and then I've got green down below. So if you don't want that to show, you want to water cut as close as you can to eliminate being able to see it. Now I'm going to recreate the background, the sky and the grass, so I'm not too worried about it, but what I do want is that deckled edge because as opposed to a straight cut edge that you would get if you were to use scissors, the deckled edge will disappear and you won't necessarily see where your paper ends and the napkin starts. And I like that look a lot better. I don't want to see where one ended and the other one began. So I've decided to put this a little bit off center. I think that always looks good in the composition. And I'm putting a good coat of fluid matte medium. I use the Liquitex brand in the matte finish. Have for years. Am not going to change because I love what it does. And I put some underneath and then I'm putting it on top. And the reason I'm putting it on top is for 2 reasons. 1, I want good adhesion down, and 2, I want to turn that napkin, the top of the napkin, into a non-porous surface because I plan on adding color to it and adding things to it. And if it was a raw napkin, it would wick in sometimes an unpleasant way. I had ripped off that tip of that hat and then I just very easily glued it back in place. No one is the wiser. No seam, no anything there. So now I want to make sure I give this a good dry. FYI, I did gesso this page before I glued down the napkin. Now I'm going to extend the grass on both sides of my napkin focal. And I am just applying green paint that I have, or it's Hooker's green with Naples yellow, and I'm applying it with a makeup sponge. The makeup sponge is making it not so precious, not so precise, which I like. Very soft. You kind of get this cloud-like feature. And I've mixed the 2 colors because I don't want it to be one tone. If you look at the grass or if you look at leaves of trees, you've got lots of shades of green and yellow. And so I'm just bringing that in. I'm not being too careful. My paint applicator is not very precise. And I'm loving that look. And you can see I've extended the ground underneath my gnomes to go the entire length of my 7 by 10 art journal page. Now, just so you know, you could be doing this on a canvas board. An 8 by 10 would basically work the same way without changing any of the composition. Now I've grabbed a little bit of gray and I'm stamping that in. Then I grab a little bit of black as well in the grass. You could add brown, different colors. What is in the grass, all those things you can add in. Now I've moved to doing the same thing with the sky. I've got cobalt blue. I have some of that Naples yellow still on my sponge, and I'm dipping into bringing that Naples yellow, tying in the bottom, the grass part to the sky. And I'm using white gesso. And I'm continuing to apply it with my makeup sponge. This is giving a very mottled, cloud-like look. When you are applying paint in a less precise fashion, like I am with a makeup sponge, you get a lot of randomness and a lot of marks on the paper that actually add to your page. It makes your job a lot easier. I'm just going, I'm not even thinking of it. I want some dark, some lighter areas, different tones of blue because, well, that's what the sky would be comprised of. If an area is too dark, I can come in and add more white. If it's too blue, too white, I can add more blue. Even I've got little wisps of yellow in there. So basically, I've made my background to match my focal image in this case. Keeping with, it had sky and it had grass. And just keep working this till I'm happy with what I have. So there's lots of movement in the sky and the grass as it is, but I'm going to bump it up. I'm going to add interest. I'm going to add layers by using stencils. Now this stencil is called Leafy Fans, and I'm taking some of that yellow, gold, green that I used before, but maybe a tone darker, and I'm just stenciling over the grass. I picked a stencil that kind of has spikes, kind of is floral, kind of ties in with the feel that I want to go in the page. But I'm not being overly precise. I'm not going to end on that line between blue and green. I'm going to extend that a little bit right here so that's a little bit taller. And the stenciling that I do here is actually making it look like it's blades of grass that are standing up. You know how some blades of grass are, you get little tufts that are a little taller than the others? So I'm absolutely loving the tone on tone. Then I was unsure what to do with the sky. I thought I'd go with swirls to get movement, but then I decided I'm going to grab a floral stencil. And this one's called Tangled Flora. And I'm just using the one image of it or one motif. And I'm stenciling with white paint. And it just looks giving a lot of movement to the sky, a lot of cloud-like features, but it's also adding to the whole floral springtime show. And I chose this because there are daisies in that wheelbarrow with the gnomes. And this kind of looked like a daisy. And I'm just continuing to stencil all over. Some are more opaque white, some are lighter white. And I think this is just adding a wonderful thing to my background. Lots of layers, lots of interest. It's just working so well, and I'm very, very happy with the result that I have. So with your stencils, you don't have to use the entirety of a stencil. You can, as I'm doing here, just picking out one motif or using it in a different way just to add texture, visual texture. And look at that. I absolutely love the background. I thought I needed to add something to it, but I don't want to go too much. So I grabbed this stamp. It's from Stamperia from, oh, I can't think of the collection. I'll link it in the description box. It's a very fine stamps, very small scale. And I'm using that Naples yellow, bringing it in. I didn't want to use something that was too big, too bold, because I loved that floral stenciling that I did. But this is just bringing that yellow into the sky, adding interest, adding another pattern that I love. Then I didn't want to stop. I grabbed a script stamp, again, small scale, and I'm using blue archival ink, and I'm just stamping some of that in the sky as well as over the grass. And again, we're building layers. I still see that wonderful stenciling that I was so happy with in the sky, but there's just more interest here. I've really built it up and made it all the more yummy. And there it is. I could not be happier. I love, love, love what's happened here. The background that I created to this gardening gnomes. So now, remember when I put the fluid matte medium on top of the napkin, and that was so that I could overpaint it in this stage. So I'm taking some blue paint with white gesso and I'm painting the hats, painting the wheelbarrow, adding depth of color to some of the parts of the focal image. Mainly just the hats and the clothing of the gnomes. Today I've chosen to use my acrylic paint. Sometimes I use my Inktense blocks. Both work equally as well, but both are permanent when dry. You can use watercolor, you just have to then avoid putting anything wet afterwards because the watercolor will reactivate. But you can see how those hats just kind of pop. They're a little brighter off that background. So now I'm taking some white paint, white gesso on a small brush, and I am overpainting the daisies and the flowers. This is giving a very painterly effect, adding a little bit of texture here, brightening the whites in from the napkin, just making my focal image stand out a little bit more. And here's all the daisies that are in the wheelbarrow, and I'm doing that as well. Just brightening it up, adding a little bit of texture. And just whitening up their beards, making a little bit more wispy. Making people wonder, did she paint it or is it a napkin? So this, I believe, is hyacinth here. I'm adding white gesso on top of it, and then I'm going to come in with the purple shades and do the same thing. And it's just, again, going to brighten up the hyacinths here, make them a little bolder, make them stand out that much more. Now, this one I'm doing in an art journal page, but the way it has turned out, I love it. So I think I'm going to make this on an 8x10 on something that will turn into a home decor piece, a seasonal art piece that I can display in springtime or in gardening season. I like the hyacinths on the other side, and I decided to add some leaves here. So I'm just coming in with my liner brush and painting some leaves, well within my painting ability. And then I'm going to come in with my liner brush and make the hyacinth flowers on this side. So I'm taking the inspiration from what was in the napkin and then going on and adding more to it, making my focal image bigger, more balanced maybe. And I don't know if someone can tell that they weren't there to begin with in the napkin. I think this is dioxazine purple that I use. I also have deep violet, Prussian blue. So aside from this piece, I can do the same thing and have hyacinths on another art piece where I just do it all by myself. And if it's within my ability level, I'm sure you could do it too. Now I've grabbed my angle brush with black acrylic paint and I'm just shading, edging the page. This is framing the page, and this is part already the finishing stages of my page. I typically frame the page in this fashion, and then I am going to shade the hats, the wheelbarrow, um, and the focal image. Just add a little bit of shading or highlights, as the case may be. This just adds to the focal image, makes it stand out just a little bit more. Then I had the butterflies. I wasn't certain that I was going to add them to this, but I decided I'm going to add them back in. I watercut around them, and then I'm just gluing them down as I did the gnomes before with my fluid matte medium. I got out my letter blocks or my letter stamps that are on wooden block. I stamp it with archival ink to get the placement, and then I play with it for where I want to put them. And now here I am just stamping with Prussian blue acrylic paint that I have on the makeup sponge. So I'm using the makeup sponge as basically a stamp pad. And after stamping, I'm just getting the acrylic paint off of my stamp by wiping it into the rag on the left-hand side. I use acrylic paint because I like the look of acrylic paint for stamping. And if I misstamp, I can come in with a baby wipe or wet cloth and erase it and go back. Like here, I think I made a mistake. The O got a little too close to the C. So I'm coming in, wiping that O off. Everything underneath it is permanent, so I'm not going to damage anything. And then I stamp it in the correct place. If I was using archival ink, I really can't do that. So I've just chosen to put the saying, Welcome Spring, but you don't always have to put a sentiment. That's kind of my thing. If you don't want to put a sentiment, you don't have to. You could also stamp it onto the excess plies of napkin and then glue that down. And the white part of the napkin will disappear and you'll just have the letters standing out. So there we have the finished page. I love the background using that floral stencil. The leaf or the tangled flora was genius. I love it. I'll have to remember it again. I love how I used the stencils and this beautiful gardening gnome napkin. I hope you give something that you've seen in this video a try. Until next time, go get creative.